Yo, what's up guys, and welcome to a new video here on Patreon, or maybe YouTube, depending on where I release this ProLens add-on. So, I just got done coding and doing a bunch of experimentation for this past week on a new add-on called ProLens, and what this does is, it replicates the lens characteristics of like lenses. So, Blender's default like bokeh is super bad and I do not recommend it. Like it works for like background stuff, but yeah, it's not really as good as this stuff. So yeah, you can see you have like this nice chromatic aberration, and you have the bokeh cutoff, and you have some like subtle dirt on the lens, and I just really love this, and this is my favorite part. This thing right here, it's called Bokeh Fringing, and you have a little cutoff right here and some highlights on the edges, and yeah. So I'm just gonna do a quick little lecture and in some basic camera stuff. So I've been just digging deep for this past week. So this is what's called an anamorphic bokeh. So you can see how it's sort of stretched, and what I was talking about earlier about the fringing, how it's like brighter on the edges, yeah. And this is called cutoff, and that's when the lens bokeh is like cut off a little bit. And we have the spherical lens, and this is what you all are probably used to, like just a basic spherical lens with some fringing and a bit of distortion at the edges. So if y'all know what that is now, we're ready to dive in. So I'm assuming you've already downloaded the zip file and you want to install it to Blender. So yeah, let's do that. Go into Edit, Preferences, and navigate to the add-ons. Here you'll hit Install and find the ProLens zip file. And just hit Install add-on, and it's that simple, yeah. So, yeah, just check it and we are done. Simple. And if you hit Shift A now, you'll see that we have a ProLens Spherical, which was this lens, and we have a ProLens Anamorphic, which is this type of lens. And the anamorphic lenses are used a lot in cinematic movies like the blockbusters, and they cost a lot of money. Like I think some of them go for like 40k for a lens. It's a lot of money, like US dollars. Yeah, so yeah, the anamorphic lens is like automatically associated with cinematic and like film look and stuff. So yeah, if you just import this, you will see that you get a normal camera but with some weird stuff, and these are the lens objects that create the cool bokeh. And we have a text here. It's just there to like you can remove it if you want to, but yeah, it's there so you guys know what's what. So yeah, where shall I start? Well, should I go through the anamorphic lens first? I think that's I'll do that. So if you hit 0 on the numpad, you will get transformed into the lens, and if you hit RR twice, or just RR, you can sort of, it's a bad example here. Let's go into the material preview so we can see some stuff. What is going on? This is not okay. Material preview. No. Okay, this is better. So RR, you can see that we sort of navigate, we can sort of rotate in the lens, okay? So another shortcut that is useful is Control-Alt-0, and that will teleport the lens to you. So yeah, it will get there, and I can do the same here. And yeah, to be able to do this, the first time you import something, you might not be able to hit Control-Alt-0, and that's because there is no little white fill here, and that's because we just imported a new camera. So before doing anything, you have to hit 0, and you can see that this will get filled now. And now you can hit Control-Alt-0 to sort of move it around as a normal camera. And that's the same. Let's say you want to like try these out and compare them. So you import the spherical, it's basically the same, but you can see that if I hit 0 now, I will get transformed into this camera. So if you want to make this your main camera, you gotta go into the scene properties and select the Pro Lens camera, like this one. So now it works. And you can switch between these depending on what you want to do. So I'm just gonna import the anamorphic lens, and I'm going to hit 0, so we can sort of look through this this view right here. And yeah, I want to demonstrate some stuff that it can do and how to sort of customize it. So these two lenses come with 3 different separate lenses, I guess, or like amount of dirt basically. So you can select how much dirt you want in your lens and some customization, and I'll be going through that. So I hit 0 to get into the lens, and yeah, I'm just gonna switch this to CPU so it doesn't start lagging here, because that would not be very good. So let's switch to a different HDRI. Let's do this guy. And yeah, you can see just right off the bat how the bokeh looks just amazing in my opinion. If you compare that to Blender's default, this is so much better. So yeah, I don't really know where to start. Like, there's a lot to go through. Well, I'll just start by saying this is sort of janky, and it's not perfect, but it's the closest you'll get to an actual realistic camera. So yeah, the lens objects. I have 2 panels right here, and that's for the bokeh cutoff. And you guys remember what the bokeh cutoff was? It's the cutting of the lens. So you can see that we have some bokeh cutoff here, and that's adjusted by these guys. So if I would have brought this down a lot, you can see that we get a lot of bokeh cutoff, and if we bring this right up, you can see we have no bokeh cutoff. And yeah, I usually like to have just a little tad bit of bokeh cutoff at the tops, and maybe just a subtle bit of bokeh at the bottom. And yeah, that's basically these guys, bokeh cutoff. And yeah, so we have this guy right here, and it's probably my favorite. And to demonstrate this a little better, I'm just gonna remove all of the environment stuff, and I'm going to add in a little cube, and I'm just gonna place it right here, and I'm gonna make an emission shader like so. Okay, perfect. And I'm just gonna scale this down a bunch like this, and also bring up the strength so we can see it a little better. Yeah, like so. So you can see that there's sort of like a little halo in the middle, and that's trying to replicate the it's sort of like it's brighter at the edges. And yeah, so you can actually adjust the amount you want this to like affect by adjusting this guy. So you can see if I would have brought this up to 100%, you can see that there's just a big hole here. But the bad part about that is it will also make your scene darker. So this is with this at 0, and this is with that at 100. And what that basically does is it puts a filter on top of your scene. So I recommend having this at like 0.5 or something. And to compensate for the lost brightness, you set the exposure to 1, and then it's back to normal basically. So you have the exposure to 1 when working with this, and you'll get these nice bokeh fringes. So yeah, if you want to add, like, see all of the detail, you want to have a higher sample count, but it's not like this won't really slow down your render times. But if you want to see all of the extra like smudges and stuff, you will have to increase your render samples. But yeah, you can increase the amount of halo-ness, and you can also scale this around. So if I scale this up, you can see that it will become thinner and thinner, and I actually prefer it being kind of thin. and you can scale it down and it will be a little mini thing. Yeah, it requires a few samples there, but I like this the most. And you can see there's a little green dot right there, and that's because I have actually, let's go through the different lenses. So I've got a few different lenses. I've got three ones, and we have one that is pretty clean, and we have one that is medium dirty, and we have one that is super dirty. So you can also see that I have a little bit of RGB split on this one. So if you just go into your man, I really didn't plan out this tutorial. Okay, I'm just switching it up. Okay, so if you, let's say you want to change the lens, so what do? Well, you select the text right up here, and then you go into edit mode, and you only select this guy right here, this guy, not the text. You can delete it if you want to. So yeah, then you select your desired lens. You can see a little preview under the preview right here, and you just hit assign, and it will assign you to that specific lens. And I have a few different ones right here, and my favorite is probably the super dirty because it has a lot of imperfection, and yeah, it's easier to see. But if you don't like the chromatic aberration, you can actually sort of yeah, if you want to go, like, you can basically customize this how much you want. And I have the RGB split, so if you want to customize the amount of RGB split, you can change around the location for these guys, and you can see how they sort of change. So you can bring down this to 0, and you'll get only chromatic aberration on the edges, as you can see. So if I just bring this up and bring this up, we'll get some nice chromatic aberration. But I like to keep this stuff subtle, so maybe something like that. And yeah, that is the different lenses, right? Okay, so let's go through the spherical lens. So yeah, it's basically the same deal. To delete this, you just delete all of the little things, and yeah, let's add in the spherical lens. So you hit 0, and you will get transported into the lens. And let's see, I'm just gonna hit render on this so we can see a little better. Okay, here it is, and it's the same stuff basically, but it's round. And you can actually change if you want to have an anamorphic lens in the ratio tab here, and it will sort of squeeze it, and you can have 10 if you want to, like, or maybe 0.1 if you want a really stretched lens. But you can see that these parameters are sort of like handmade for this lens particular, so you'll have to sort of scale some of these around for, to get it to work. But yeah, basically the same parameters. You can change the amount of bokeh cutoff you have using these guys, and you can also change the amount of haloing, and same with the RGB. So you have the same lenses here, and you can just apply those if you want to. Really cool. So yeah, the final thing, what was that? Yeah, okay, so yeah, about this little plugin, it's not perfect, like I said before, and it has its limitations. So I'm just gonna open up a little HDRI real quick, and let's check. Okay, so I really like how this looks right now, and yeah, so what happens if you want to have a wider focal length? Well, you can see that you get a bunch of vignetting, and maybe too much for your taste. So yeah, that's because we have our lens right here. So if you want to do that, you can actually scale this up, or like this, but that will also sort of remove the effect. So if I just zoom back in right like this, and let's see what happens when we scale this. So I'm just gonna zoom in like that. So if I scale this in, you can see how the bokeh becomes smaller, and if we scale this out, the bokeh becomes longer, and if we just scale this too much, there will eventually be no change whatsoever. And that's the bad part about this. And you won't get that iconic bokeh shape. So I recommend using a focal length of above 55, I think. It's the safest to go with. But yeah, what else? Yeah, so I say yeah a lot. Maybe that's just me. Okay, so the f-stop. In the materials, I've marked up the, let's see, materials right here. So I've said the recommended f-stop, so 1.4 to 2 f-stops, and you can see what happens if we go below 1.4 f-stops on the camera. You can see that everything just starts becoming really dark, and that's because it takes the edges of this lens and it sort of blends it together with the whole image. So yeah, you can see that it becomes really weird, and yeah, that's not really good. So I recommend using a 1.4 or 1.6 to 2, which is the max, and if you start going above 2, you start losing the detail. So you'll sort of have to, if you go above, like, I rarely go above 2 or like 3 maybe. So it sort of still exists there, but you'll have to scale this either up or down depending on the amount of f-stops you change. But yeah, just remember that. So I think 1.6 is pretty good, and yeah, it's the same for the different ones. So this one you can go up to 35 f-stops because there's not really a lot of dirt, but if you go to like 35 on this one, you will see some of the dirt, which is not really great. But yeah, just remember that it's not really perfect yet, but in my opinion it's totally worth it because you get to make these awesome shots inside of Blender. And yeah, if you found this little video helpful, yeah, that's just great. And if you found the add-on helpful, that's even better. And yeah, have a good one. Bye bye.